Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is 2022 Wave 1 updates in electronic invoicing for Dynamics 365. My name is Brad, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the event and during the Q&A segment near the end. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Marek Rolecki, Principal Product Manager. Marek, over to you.
Thank you very much, Brett. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for this Tech Talk. Today, my colleagues and I will spend about an hour presenting what's new in electronic invoicing for Dynamics 365 Finance, Supply Chain Management, and Dynamics 365 Project Operations, focusing on new capabilities and upcoming country-specific updates in 2022 Wave 1 and a little bit beyond. Before we start, due to early delivery of specific information about solutions outlined in this session, I must admit that the presentation is delivered as is. All the dates and features specified here are preliminary and subject to change without notice. This presentation is provided for informational purposes only and represents Microsoft's view as of the presentation date. Please take some time later to familiarize yourself with the terms in this disclaimer. So what's on our agenda for today? I will start with an overview, a refresher on electronic invoicing service, including what's new. Then my colleagues will take you through electronic invoicing in Saudi Arabia, Poland, and France, focusing on the requirements and features, those already available as well as planned. We will summarize that part with a roadmap and provide you with a set of resources to learn more. We plan to devote some time at the end of the session to Q&A panel. Despite dedicated time, I encourage you to post your questions during the presentation, and we will do our best to address them. Today's session is the next one in the series of meetings devoted to electronic invoicing service. In the previous ones, we have already provided overview of the service, its architecture, and selected country-specific solutions, like electronic invoicing for Egypt or Brazil. Today's session will be more theoretical than usual. We want to make sure that everyone tracking adoption of electronic invoicing in France, Saudi Arabia, and Poland, or just being interested in this subject, is aware of our roadmap, timelines, and functional coverage. We plan in the nearest future to follow up with deep dive sessions for those 3 countries one by one. Let's start with the promised refresher. Electronic invoicing for Dynamics 365 is a service made generally available last year as a component of Globalization Services portfolio based on microservices platform. It extends electronic invoicing previously available in Dynamics 365 enterprise applications. Important to mention, as any other service using microservices platform, for now it is only available for cloud deployments of Dynamics 365 Finance, Supply Chain Management, and Project Operations. It is not integrated, for instance, with Business Central or earlier versions like Microsoft Dynamics 2009 or 2012. So coming back, extending a regulatory configuration service with concept of globalization feature, combining configurability of electronic reporting, and introducing new processing pipelines, we provide in electronic invoicing service easier mechanisms for extensibility by configuration, delivering more and more country-specific invoicing solutions, as well as making previously available more complete For instance, by adding integrations, we drive consistency in end-user experience across all the supported countries. What are those new capabilities and newly covered countries? In 2021 waves, we published globalization features in the service for almost all previously available in Dynamics 365 invoice formats, adding brand new solutions for Indonesia, Egypt, and integration with Italian SDI exchange system. We are closely monitoring invoice market and demands. Reacting to the asks, we start providing solutions as early as possible for countries and regions where electronic invoicing is being made or planned to be mandatory. We have 3 countries here today, and more will be coming. Apart from country-specific solutions, we expand service capabilities. Among others, the plan is to provide a set of APIs to let the electronic invoicing service be integrated with any other first and third-party applications, for instance, with unsupported AX versions like AX 2012 or AX 2009. You will hear more precise information about planned capabilities and dates later in the presentation. Before we talk about planned solutions, let's set some common ground and context around used globalization platform components there. Countries being discussed in today's session differ in terms of required formats, integration principles, or overall processes, but all our new invoicing solutions have a common denominator: usage of electronic invoicing service. While not all the capabilities and available processing actions might be required in all the countries, the mechanics behind solutions is the same. A clerk at a selling company posts an invoice. The document, represented as unified structured business data, is sent to electronic invoicing service. The service, based on pre-configured rules, selects a globalization feature previously imported from global repository and executes globalization feature logic enabled via regulatory configuration service. Where necessary, using secrets stored in customer's key vault, the service signs the transformed invoice, sends it to the authorities for acceptance, and process any responses. All the executed actions are logged for audit trail, with responses and messages stored in customer storage. Built-in integrations with Microsoft 365 and SharePoint allow distribution of our created invoices as well as receipt of invoices issued for our company. With having that said, time comes to get deeper into specific countries. Please let me introduce Ilya Kondratenko, our Senior Product Manager in Dynamics Globalization Experience, who will talk about Saudi Arabia and Poland. Ilya, handing over to you.
Thank you, Marek. In Saudi Arabia, all resident taxpayers will be and partially already are obliged to issue invoices in electronic format. Electronic invoicing rollout was started last year and continues now. The plans are to enforce the full scope of requirements by the end of this year. The implementation of requirements is split to phases. Phase 1, or the generation phase, which is already completed last December, assumes that all taxpayers must be able to issue invoices in electronic format and store it locally without submission to the tax authorities. The format of invoices was not strictly mandated at this stage. Only the content of generated invoices was legally predefined. Another part of Phase 1 requirements was about mandatory printing of basic QR codes in simplified invoices. These requirements have already been implemented in Dynamics 365, released and available now. Phase 2, or integration phase, which is still in progress, adds the obligation to submit electronic invoices in a predefined XML format to the tax authorities. ZATCA. ZATCA is an acronym of Saudi Arabian Tax Authority. Software manufacturers need to integrate the invoice generation solutions with a centralized invoicing portal. Phase 2 will be gradually implemented in waves. The first wave starts on the 1st January next year. On the next slide, we will consider these requirements in more details. There are two different approaches in Saudi Arabia for different business communication scenarios. The first one, on the left side of the slide, shows business to business or business to government communication. As a result of this communication, tax invoices should be issued and then cleared by Zatka. The supplier issues an invoice and submits it to Zatka first. Then Zatka validates this invoice and, in case of successful validation, update this invoice with so-called cryptographic stamp and with a QR code, and send this updated invoice back to the seller. After that, the seller can share this cleared invoice with the buyer. The second approach uses reporting model, drawn on the right side. It describes business to consumers communication. As a result of this communication, simplified tax invoices should be issued and reported to Zatka. A seller issues an invoice, applies a cryptographic stamp to this invoice by their own, and calculates and attaches a QR code by their own as well. Right after issuing, the invoice can be shared with the buyer in human readable or electronic format, and in parallel must be reported to Zatka in electronic format. In parallel doesn't mean immediately, but with some periodicity, at the end of working day, for example. Buyers will be also able to validate invoices by themselves, scanning QR codes with a special application. This application will be provided by Zatka and not in the scope of Dynamics 365 or any other solution. On the next slide, we will look at the specifics of invoices implementation in Dynamics 365. Two functional areas of Dynamics 365 are involved. Finance part on the right side of the picture and commerce part on the left. But let me start from another thing. Onboarding. Every taxpayer must be additionally registered, especially for electronic invoicing, additionally to normal tax registration. As a result of onboarding, so-called cryptographic stamp identifier, or CSID, will be obtained. This CSID will be used in retail operations from the very beginning and indirectly used in ERP part. In Dynamics 365 Finance, e-invoices covers all supported invoice types: sales invoices based on sales orders, pretext invoices, and project invoices. Related credit notes and debit notes are also covered. Once an invoice is posted in Dynamics 365 Finance, users can generate related electronic invoice using invoicing service, shown in the middle part of this picture. Tax invoices or simplified tax invoices can be generated by the service for different business scenarios. Once tax invoice is generated, it will be submitted by the service to Zatka for clearance. Zatka services validate the invoice and, in case of no errors, update the XML file of the original invoice with a new block for CSID and another element with a QR code. Then the updated XML file will be sent back to the invoicing service. Then invoicing service updates original invoices in Dynamics 365 Finance with QR codes and some other technical data. Having these valid QR codes calculated by Zatka in Dynamics 365 allows printing of original invoices in human readable format with proper QR codes. For retail operations, in Dynamics 365 Commerce. Fiscal receipts should be printed directly from point of sales terminals with the proper QR codes from the very beginning. That's why CSID must be obtained in advance. Simplified tax invoices should also contain CSID data. Simplified invoices will be generated on retail side and sent to the invoicing service for submission only. Invoicing service submits simplified invoices to Zatka portal for reporting purpose. No business response is expected from Zatka. It's only one-way communication. Only technical response is expected that submission was okay or not. That's basically it about Saudi Arabian invoicing, and we can switch to Poland. In Poland, starting from the next year, all taxpayers will be obliged to send and receive invoices only in electronic format and only via special portal introduced by Polish authorities for electronic invoicing, National System of E-Invoices, or KSEF. It's short of its Polish name. There were several phases, including pilot and actual but voluntary invoicing, which are already in the past. The final phase, after which invoicing becomes mandatory for all businesses, ends by the end of this year. Starting from the 1st of January 2023, all taxpayers must do invoicing accordingly. On the next slide, let's consider the requirements implementation in Dynamics 365 in more details. No additional registration is required for electronic invoicing. Participants must be simply registered in Polish tax authorities as usual. Taxpayers must also have the certificates for digital signing of outgoing invoices and for establishing connection to KSEF system. In Dynamics 365 Finance, invoicing covers all supported invoice types: sales invoices based on sales orders, pre-tax invoices, project invoices, and advance invoices, which are specific for Poland. It's a new coverage. None of previously implemented countries required the invoices for advance invoices. Credit notes will be also covered. Once an invoice is posted in Dynamics 365 Finance, we are talking now about customer outgoing invoices at this stage. The e-invoicing service generates an e-invoice XML file and digitally signs it using the certificate. The format of this file is Polish specific, developed by KSEF, and doesn't look similar to any other country-specific or globally used format. Then the service submits signed XML file to the KSEF system. KSEF does validation and provides the response whether the submission was successful or not. In case of successful submission, KSEF assigns a unique invoice number, called KSEF number. This number will be used in different inquiries and in related credit notes as a unique reference to the original invoices. Once received, KSEF number will be saved back in Dynamics 365 Finance by the service. Related posted invoices in the system will be updated with this KSEF number in Dynamics 365 database. The plans also include to support of incoming vendor invoices import. Vendor invoices can be retrieved from KSEF by the invoicing service using the KSEF numbers. Then vendor invoices will be sent to Dynamics 365 Finance and saved as a pending vendor invoices. The import process ends here. Then pending vendor invoices can be reviewed, adjusted if necessary, and posted directly into Dynamics 365 Finance. That's basically it about invoicing in Poland. Let me introduce My colleague Dmitry Kalyuzhnyy will present electronic invoicing in France. Dmitry, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ilya, and hello, everyone. Today we will talk about electronic invoicing in France and particularly in integration with Chorus Pro. In France, there is a legal requirements to generate invoices in electronic format and use intermediate platform for communicating these invoices to the business partners. Currently, this system and this process works for business to government submissions and communications, but the government, starting from the 1st of July 2024 and gradually up to the 1st of January 2026, will require companies or organizations start using this platform and submit electronic invoices as a mandatory requirement. I say gradually, it means that depending on the size of the organization and the sector, different dates are considered as a mandatory dates of starting of using electronic invoices communication in this way. You can refer to the legal articles describing more details here to understand when your organization is obliged to start using the functionality. There are certain technical requirements to satisfy the legal requirements, and these technical requirements are related to the structure of the documents. And currently, according to the proposals from the government, is to support invoices in XML UBL structure. There is UBL PFOL or BIS3 structure, CII, and Factor X. Another option is to work with signed PDF files that can be either submitted through the portal or automate the way of submission. From digital signature point of view, in France, there are no requirements to sign XML documents, while it is expected or it is mandatory that PDF files must be signed digitally. And the most important and interesting part of this end-to-end integration is that all communication between buyers and sellers must be done through the certified service providers, and the Chorus Pro service is considered as one of the basic platforms for these communications. So it means actually then that to send electronic invoice to your buyer, who receive electronic invoice as a seller, you have to communicate with Chorus Pro services. And all these invoices will go through this certified provider. Microsoft is working on the solution to establish end-to-end integration with Chorus Pro through electronic invoicing service. And make sure that your Dynamics 365 finance or supply chain management or project operations will have this functionality out of the box. And in the next slide, we can review how this integration and implementation of the functionality is done. As Microsoft, we use electronic invoicing functionality as a base service for integration with Chorus Pro and for generation, submission, and receiving electronic invoices. There are several main capabilities that we will provide as a part of the solution. And as I mentioned, the first one is a direct integration with Chorus Pro. Chorus Pro proposes a few ways of integration. And one of the ways of integration is API mode or service mode that we have chosen, and we will do integration with it. All invoices that are sent or received are actually use serial numbers for identifying buyers or sellers. And there are other options that are provided by the government or by Chorus Pro. With Microsoft, we'll use serial numbers only in our solution that should be fully sufficient for the establishing this communication. From the generation of the format perspective, we will generate and submit UBL people, also known as B3 XML format. Processing response information and updating invoices in Dynamics 365 Finance is one of the steps during the communication chain. And as soon as we have the successful or even not successful submission of invoice to Chorus Pro, system can always get the results or the details of this integration and submission and provide the user of your ERP system with the current state. And one of the important parts of this end-to-end communication is not only generation of electronic invoice in UBL people format, but also receiving vendor invoices. And this process assumes getting invoices from Chorus Pro that were sent by your clients, and process or save these invoices into pending vendor invoice. There are beyond of like main capabilities and main scenarios. There are extra functionality that we will be bringing during this or plan to bring during this calendar year is validation of organizations which are registered in Chorus Pro by means of validating of the serial numbers. So it means actually that during adding or maintaining your customer information, you will be able to specify and validate serial number and use it for validation of registration on Chorus Pro, as well as during invoice creation. You will be able to validate if the client registered in Chorus Pro for further deciding if this invoice should go through Chorus Pro or not. Another functionality is the generation of submission results in a format that can be printed like Word or PDF files. And it is crucial for some of the business scenarios when the organization submits the document to Chorus Pro and needs to print the status from submission to share it or send the status to your client or just give as a paper to your client. This functionality will go on top of the main capabilities. And to spend a bit more time on the architecture and the main functionality of the solution, I will walk you through the process in more details. So what is happening? It is, and actually it is very similar what Ilya presented for other two countries. What is happening? When the clerk is creates customer invoice or pre-tax invoice or project invoice in your Dynamics 365 Finance or Supply Chain Management or Project Operation Systems, this document initializes creation of electronic invoice in invoicing service. That initiates the process of submission of this electronic invoice in already converted to UBL people structure format and waits or receives the response from the Chorus Pro services and processes response. In case it is successful and there are no errors, then clerk can see this information as a successful submission. If there are errors or issues during validation of your document or the client has issues with receiving of the document, Dynamics 365 user will see these details in a user-friendly manner with the details and with the reference to particular invoice. Beyond direct integration with Chorus Pro for submission, it is possible to set up additionally the process of saving the generated files in SharePoint or send this generated file as a mail to any mail addressee. And all these steps can be easily configured with regulatory configuration service. Marek did introduction in the very beginning or refresh to electronic invoicing and how it can be configured. Here, with regulatory configuration service, it is possible either to use the functionality as is out of the box what Microsoft provides with setting up additional required parameters, or you can change the functionality or adjust it according to your business process as needed. For example, you can create your format to be submitted to Chorus Pro, or you can introduce changes to the format that we provide, or you can add additional steps in the processing, like sending as a mailbox or saving the file to SharePoint. Integration with Chorus Pro is done, as I mentioned, via API mode or service mode that requires authentication using user account credentials or user account secrets. And these credentials and secrets will be stored as a part of setup in Azure Key Vault that is fully managed by your organization. And then in regulatory configuration service, you will be able to refer to this key vault to be sure that electronic invoicing can have an access to Chorus Pro. Storage account or Azure storage account is used to store all the generated files along the process of documents interchange here. A similar process can be set up and configured for vendor invoice import to your ERP system. So there is not much different. The only thing that you will be able to receive validate invoice, and this invoice will be pushed to pending vendor invoice. There is actually all for electronic invoicing integration with Chorus Pro for France. And now we will take a look into the roadmap and to the resources that are very useful to refer to. So according to our roadmap and release of the functionality, and now I will be talking not only about France, but other two countries and other extra capabilities. Today, we already have some part of the functionality that we presented during this TechTalk event, but also there is a plan to ship the functionality step by step for different countries. And you can see that there are several milestones like June, August, and October when you can get either preview or generally available functionality for certain countries. Beyond October 22, we still have the plan to release some extra capabilities for France that were referred to in the previous slide, as well as we will include vendor invoice import beyond October 22. One very important and interesting functionality that was also mentioned by Marek is Open API for first and third party applications. We are targeting to release it later beyond October 22nd. And this functionality is very interesting and can be very useful for customers who have non-supported versions of Dynamics 365 AX or even other ERP systems or other applications where you want to set integration with these countries in relation to electronic invoices. But all the details regarding particular dates and milestones can be found in release notes. And in release notes, you will also be able to track if there are certain changes in our plan or if new functionality will come on top of what we presented. And going to the resources and some additional information, here for your convenience, you can see the set of links that you can use or explore. And the first one is a landing page or the main entry point for the documentation for electronic invoicing, where you can get a lot of information about usage of electronic invoicing for different countries where we already have support or that are in preview, as well as you can read and see how the functionality can work beyond the countries that we support and out-of-the-box functionality. And for example, if you are looking for solutions to establish communication with external systems or set up kind of electronic document interchange scenarios with different electronic reporting formats, you can go there and read our functional capabilities. As I mentioned, to refer to particular dates and milestones for the countries that we are presenting right now, you can review release plans, and there are links to particular release plans per each country. And obviously, if you want to explore more capabilities of electronic invoicing functionality, you should go through items or links of the articles in Learn More section, because here we refer to the documentation of the components that are closely related or that are the main or important parts of electronic invoicing functionality. If you are not familiar with electronic reporting yet, you can find a lot of details there how to construct and work on creation of different formats and create different types of the documents in different structures. You can review the administrative and some additional functional part of regulatory configuration services, as well as, of course, reference to the overall globalization services as a part of finance or Dynamics 365 finance, contains many interesting things that can be useful for your business processes. But anyway, we are open for even like discussions or having a call or having a chat with you. And if you have any questions, feedback, requests, or thoughts about electronic invoicing in the listed countries and beyond, you can always send email to the group mentioned below, or you can send a message in Yammer. We will promptly react on that, and we really want to collaborate with any of you who wants to build your solutions using electronic invoicing functionality. That's it for the main part of the presentation. Thank you very much for participation. And now we can jump to Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Dmitry and Ilya, for providing great overview of the solutions for those three countries. So let me bring up several questions which haven't been answered in the meantime. I will be trying to address some of those myself and will ask your help for the rest. So the first question is, how can I get involved into private or public preview? Well, so in general, the process is not different from any other previews. So regarding private preview engagements, please send us a mail or watch for updates in the Yammer group. We'll be announcing planned private preview programs in Yammer. For public previews, especially taking into consideration recent changes around PIP program, all the PIP builds are being made publicly available, so all the organizations will be it will be possible for all the organizations to pick up those builds and use for public preview. And the availability of private preview will be and actually is already announced in referenced release notes, which Dmitry was presenting. The second question is, are these invoicing solutions available on-prem somehow? It was mentioned that invoicing service is available for cloud deployments only. Yeah. So here we are talking about end-to-end solutions which are available only for cloud through electronic invoicing service. But taking into account that globalization feature is using electronic reporting configurations to create required formats, it means that, well, those configurations can be used directly in Dynamics 365 Finance, supply chain, or project operations in order to transform the business data into required format. But what is important, the integration will be available for cloud deployments only as out-of-the-box solution. So it means that once a properly formatted message is created, then well, the partner, like our solution provider, will have to take care of transportation layer, right, and cover integration, either directly or using any third-party solutions. Another question regarding private preview. So how is private preview supposed to look like? Is availability aligned with monthly update releases? How can I get access? So it's a little bit too early, right? But now, since we are still determining the optimal form of previews, especially for private preview, depending on the exact date of early bits availability and alignment with monthly updates release calendar, will be providing possibility to participate in different ways. And as I mentioned earlier, all the information will be available in the Yammer group as an announcement. So coming back to the functional coverage here. So we have heard about coverage for commerce and POS in Saudi Arabia. Does it mean they are excluded from French and Polish scope here? So that's something what I would ask Dmitry, you and Ilya to elaborate on.
Let me jump in, Marek. For Poland, yes, currently we do not consider retail for Polish localization. It will be only Dynamics 365 finance part. Yes.
For France, there are no requirements right now to support business B2C scenarios, while we are discussing with retail team if to plan the solution for future releases, and now definitely it is out of scope.
Okay, thank you very much. So another question, and I see it's indirectly related to the subject of today's meeting, but anyway, worth to bring up. Do you have any time frame for the integration with PayPal network? Today we are able to generate UBL invoices, but not to send them. So I think that I can try to answer this one. So in general, we are evaluating this scenario as to be closed or addressed with indirect integration. In scope of bigger initiative under Globalization Studio, already described in release plans, we'll be delivering connectors to ISV, tax compliance and globalization solutions, extending out-of-the-box compliance and globalization content and capabilities. So the ISV solution connector planned for invoicing service shall deliver last mile business to government integrations for some countries. Will extend global coverage by enabling invoicing solutions for the countries which we as Microsoft do not cover or do not support. And coming back to PayPal, shall provide access to invoicing exchange frameworks. So that's how we look at this topic. One more. Is it possible to post an invoice with PDF attachment and embed it afterwards into XML files for Poland, Saudi Arabia, and France? Is it something supported now or planned to be supported? So once again, I would ask you, Ilya and Dmitry, to elaborate.
If we talk about Poland, and if I properly understood the question, is it possible to attach PDF files or any other documents to the XML structured files, correct? I believe yes. We have this native capability in the system, but Polish format does not assume having such kind of attachments. Files, external files, can't be attached to XEF format. Only links and only short additional comments, but not the files. That's about Poland.
And for France, there is a possibility to extend or to add PDF file to UBL structure in general. And as Ilya just mentioned, that there is a native capability of our functionality to do that. But in scope of the current scenarios, what we provide out of the box for integration with Chorus Pro, we do not provide this functionality or this solution. Yet, if you consider that it is an important part of your business process or scenarios that you evaluate, please write to us in a mail with your case. Yes, describing your case, and we will have we will contact you and probably arrange some discussion of the scenario in more details.
Great, thank you very much for answering. Another question. Is there any possibility to hide all the processes shown in the presentation from the end users? for example, AR clerk. Dmitry, do you want to answer?
Yes, actually, we need to consider that the possibility to set up and maintain the process of integration and generation of files and so forth is separated from the main permissions that belong to your clerks. Beyond role-based access control, there are certain capabilities to really distinguish that as a separate sub-products. Yes, considering that Globalization Studio goes as a separate from Dynamics 365 Finance, and but your users who are responsible for creation and maintaining AR documents and keeping AR processes. This user won't be able to do any adjustments and see the details of the process setup. This is about setup. And the second part is about sending or receiving invoices. This part is also possible to automate, and this capability comes out of the box as a main part of the solution, where the AR user takes part only in posting invoice, and after that, system will automatically pick required invoices that are subjects to send to particular country's authority or platform, and it doesn't matter if it is Chorus Pro or Zakta or Polish platform. So user won't be involved into this manual work. System will do that automatically. At the same time, user can go to the special form that is called submission or receiving log, and see the details of the invoices submission and receiving. If this user will have corresponding permissions for that. That is.
Thank you very much, Dmitry. Well, I'm checking. So I see several more questions, but they are touching very specific scenarios. So I would encourage all of those who posted those questions and would not be getting answers during this meeting to reach out to us either via mail or in Yammer to ask or to request a meeting to get deeper into those specific scenarios. Since they are not applicable for general use cases, let's not cover them. So I believe that with having that said, we would be concluding today's meeting. And in that case, I would be passing back over to you, Brett. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marek. To our attendees out there, I have posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd love to get your feedback on today's session and to hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation on that. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. And finally, I'd just like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and our audience for joining us today.